Hi, I'm Paige Samard. Have you ever wondered how we went from this, humans with savage instincts to live, to this, civilization, life, and more? On today's episode of Bio for Dummies, we've got some special guests for you, so sit tight and get ready to learn.
Evolution is something that several scientists have been trying to solve for centuries. But what is evolution? In simplest terms, evolution is the process of change in all forms of life over generations. A long time ago, people believed that God was the creator of all things and was responsible for the growth of the earth and all organisms. Today, those beliefs have been changed because of science. In today's episode, we will have two special guests, Charles Darwin and Stephen Gould, to tell us about their theories and more. Darwin's theory is thought to be the theory of evolution today. On to you, Paige.
Our first special guest is Charles Darwin. How are you, Charles?
I'm good, thank you.
So, our first question, what is your theory?
Well, my theory is the theory of natural selection. Natural selection is the process through which populations of living organisms adapt and change. Individuals in a population are naturally variable, meaning that they are all different in some ways. And this variation means that some individuals have traits better suited to the environment than others do.
Our second question, what is your biggest achievement?
My biggest achievement by far has been my voyage of discovery. When I was 22, my professor had recommended me to go on a voyage to South America as a naturalist to observe and know anything worthy to be noted in natural history. And in December 1831, I set sail on the HMS Beagle. And you could say my voyage lasted a bit longer than expected. It was originally only supposed to last 2 years, but it ended up lasting 5. And during those 5 years, I observed, recorded, and collected specimens of rocks and minerals and plants and animals. And my observations covered more than 2,000 journal pages. And on those pages were my very unusual findings that I made and that I had discovered. And after spending time on the continent of South America, I moved to the Galapagos Islands, and I noticed that on each small island, each had their own species of tortoise, mocking thrush, finches, and numerous plants.
Thirdly, what are your thoughts on natural selection?
I think that natural selection is a drawn-out, complex process involving multiple interconnected causes. Natural selection requires a variation in a population of organisms for the process to work. At least some of that variation must be heritable and passed on to organisms and descendants in some way.
Before you go, is there anything else you'd like us to know?
I think that's everything, but I do suggest that when you plan a voyage, try to make sure that it doesn't last 5 years like mine did. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for meeting with me. Keep up your sciencing! Next, we have Stephen J. Gould. How are you, Stephen?
Well, thank you very much for asking, Paige. I'm doing great, and I'm very happy to be having this meeting with you.
So the first question is, what is your theory?
My most well-known theory is my theory of punctuated equilibrium. It states that evolution of a lineage could proceed at variable rates of change. This means that organisms don't gradually change over time, but instead stay stable for long periods of time and change rapidly over short periods of time. I have hypothesized that species actually do not change much most of the time. However, isolated events such as geological catastrophes or the formation of new geological barriers could contribute to the evolution of a species. I propose the theory that speciation actually happens relatively quickly over thousands rather than millions of years. I performed an experiment in which I looked at snail fossils throughout time to see any change that may come about. I observed that during most of the time frame in which these snails were evolving, they didn't change all that much, but when they did change, however, they changed very distinctively.
Great. The second one. What's your biggest achievement?
Well, I accomplished very many things in my lifetime. I graduated from Columbia University with a PhD in paleontology, and after that I went on to work at Harvard for a large portion of my career. I wrote a book called Ontogeny and Phylogeny that was published in 1977. But I think my greatest achievement was receiving the Darwin Wallace Medal for major advancements in evolution. Unfortunately, I received it 6 years after I died.
Next, what are your thoughts on natural selection?
I believe that natural selection only works on organisms and that natural selection can operate on a whole species in a process called species selection. You see, Classes can be defined by a set of defining conditions. For example, John Smith may be recognizable by a set of attributes at one time. He may be the person at door 8, wearing gray pants and carrying a blue bag. But if he changes his clothes, he'll still be John Smith. He is not defined by any observable attributes. The individual John Smith is a unique stream of cells from conception to death. In evolutionary theory, species do not have defining attributes and are not classes. They are particular individuals forming a series of ancestor-descendant populations over time. A species exists between its origin and its extinction, much in the way a person exists between birth and death. I think that natural selection applies to individual species instead of class as a whole.
And finally, is there anything else you'd like us to know?
I really enjoyed being here and talking about my theories. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and opinions. So, how has evolution shaped and changed our environment and the organisms that are living within our environment? As I said before, humans used to live among dinosaurs and had to hunt for their food, find shelter, and lived like animals. Now, in 2020, humans live with technology in large cities. For food, all we have to do is get in our car, drive to the grocery store, and buy whatever we want. However, evolution hasn't been beneficial for everyone. As humans evolved, the more we started cutting down trees, polluting the air, and destroying forests. Obviously, this impacted the organisms living within our environment, making it harder for them to survive and find suitable habitats. In conclusion, evolution has been both good and bad for the Earth. After everything you've learned today, tell us what you think on this subject at www.biofordummies.ca. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.